The laughter was what did it. Not loud or wild. No, it was sharp, pointed. A kind of laughter meant to hurt someone, even if that someone wasn't supposed to hear it. I was in the laundry room, hands still gritty from the mill, scrubbing oil out of a uniform I couldn't afford to replace. Megan had her friends over, again. They drank white wine from mismatched glasses and sat around the dining table like queens overlooking a kingdom of rust and regret. I wasn't supposed to hear it, but I did. She only married him for the health insurance, one of them said, a voice I didn't recognize. And Megan laughed. Not a nervous laugh, not a "stop, you're being mean" laugh. Just agreement, smug, pleased. "I mean, come on," she added, voice sugar-sweet and venom-tipped. "It's not like I was going to spend my life with a guy who welds bridges and still uses coupons." They all cracked up. I stood in the laundry room, my hands still wet, still scrubbing, as if maybe the fabric could soak up what I'd just heard. That's the thing about a moment like that. It doesn't feel like a knife. Not at first. It's a weight. A cold, creeping one. That night, she came to bed late, smelling like white musk and some overpriced candle her followers probably bought from her link. I didn't say anything. I wanted to see more. Over the next week, small things sharpened. The way she flinched when I offered to pick her up from her appointments. How her phone never left her side anymore. The soft lighting she set up for her live streams, always angled away from me, the real-life husband who didn't match the brand. It wasn't just her laughter that lingered. It was the way she touched me afterward. Brief, obligatory, like someone checking off a box. She used to press her forehead against mine. Now she barely looked up. So I looked. I wasn't proud of it, but I started noticing patterns. She said she was going to her massage therapist twice a month, but the health claims said otherwise. The coverage logs listed procedures and prescriptions I didn't recognize. And someone, not Megan, was showing up under our shared benefits ID. At work, I stayed late just to avoid going home. Ronnie, our HR clerk, noticed. "You all right, Cole?" she asked one night. "You look like you're carrying bricks inside your ribs." I didn't answer, but she caught the edge in my voice. That's when she said it. "Look, I shouldn't say anything, but there's been some weird stuff on the insurance reports, like non-employee dependents showing up flagged." I said nothing, just nodded, but something shifted. That night, after Megan fell asleep, I sat at the kitchen table and opened the benefits portal from my old work laptop. She never saw me use it anymore. That was her first mistake. In the list of claims was a name I'd never seen before. Male, my age. A serious injury listed 2 months ago. ER visit, surgery, extended recovery. Covered under my plan, as my dependent. I scrolled down. The treatment would have cost nearly 6 figures. She hadn't just laughed about using me. She'd done it. What would you do if the first doubt wasn't just in your head, but already in your bank account? I didn't sleep that night. My body lay still, but my mind was pacing miles. The digits on the benefits portal stayed burned into my eyes. A name I didn't recognize. An injury that wasn't mine. A life she'd used my labor to save. In the morning, Megan was already up, filming one of her reset morning routines. Sunlight filtered through the gauzy curtains she'd ordered online. Warm, intentional softness, she called it. It looked like calm, but I knew better. As she moved through her curated poses in front of the phone stand, I watched the back of her neck, a spot I used to kiss every morning before work. She didn't feel me watching. She didn't feel anything. I left early, went to the mill, told Ronnie I needed to see the full benefits log, not just the front-end view. "You sure?" she asked, eyebrow raised. "Because once we do this, there's no walking it back." "I'm sure." She slid into her office chair, popped open the HR admin portal, and pulled up the back-end files. A few clicks in, and the screen lit up with a row of treatment entries. Same name, over and over, Dane Alcott. I stared at it like it might blink away. Dane's not a relative? No, I said. He's not anything to me. Ronnie leaned back. Then he shouldn't be on your family coverage. You'll want to talk to someone, legal or union. This is serious fraud. Fraud. That word hit harder than the laughter. Because fraud meant intent, meant effort, meant paperwork. Someone had planned this. I asked Ronnie not to file anything yet. I needed more. Proof, not just suspicion. Back home, Megan was gone again. Content day, she called it. I opened her laptop. She rarely used passwords. Why would she? I was the stable background character in her story, the silent one with rough hands and no idea how filters worked. The laptop opened to her email inbox. There were folders, collabs, brand pitches, real drafts, then one, tucked below, medical. Inside were files, scanned forms, correspondence with Dane, hospital logs, a note thanking her for getting him covered. He called her M. One message stood out. I never would have made it without you. Can't believe your husband still hasn't figured it out. You're brilliant, and you're mine. I sat there, reading it again and again. You're mine. They thought I was stupid. They thought I was just strong hands and bad knees and no awareness. But they forgot something. I build structures for a living. I study weight, stress, integrity. I see the cracks before things collapse. She didn't just use me for coverage. She pretended I didn't exist. That night, I said nothing. I ate the reheated pasta she left out like some half-hearted gesture toward normal. Her phone buzzed twice. She turned it over, face down. Then she smiled at me, mechanical, like a doll trained to mimic affection. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "You ever think about getting a second opinion?" She tilted her head. On what? On a lie that's about to collapse. She laughed, confused, nervous. Is this one of your welding metaphors? I didn't answer, but I saw the flicker in her eyes. Something shifted. She didn't know what I knew, but she felt the tension in the room change temperature. The next day, I contacted a lawyer. Scott Levin, union-friendly, private office above the bakery on Monroe. No receptionist, just a coffee-stained desk and a wall of fireproof boxes. I told him everything. He listened, really listened, asked sharp questions. She added a dependent without your consent? Yes. And the dependent's getting treatment on your plan? Multiple. Expensive. He nodded slowly. That opens her to felony fraud. And you, if you play this wrong, to being held liable for the debt if it escalates. So what do? You get control, quietly. Remove her from the deed if you can. Freeze your joint accounts. And get documentation. This isn't just betrayal. It's theft, Cole. Theft under your name. On the way out, I bought a burner phone. I used it that night to set up a fake patient portal, one that looked nearly identical to mine. I wanted to see what else she thought was hidden, if she'd log in, if she'd leave breadcrumbs. What I saw instead shattered the last thing I was holding on to. Her calendar, synced across devices, had a blocked event titled Discharge Day. Pick up Dane, 3 p.m. Tomorrow. My shift. I'd worked 12-hour days in sweat and sparks while she used my insurance to nurse her lover back to health. And now she was going to pick him up like some rescued pet, using my car on my time. There it was. Not just the fraud, not just the betrayal, but the logistics of it. Planned, routine, cold. And that's when I realized this wasn't just an affair. This was a life they built on my back. What would you do when you realize the betrayal isn't just emotional? It's administrative, documented, and already in motion. It was raining hard the day she went to pick him up. The kind of Ohio downpour that turns sidewalks into streams and makes everything look like it's melting. I left work early under the excuse of a dental emergency. Nobody questioned it. My boots tracked water across the concrete as I walked to my truck. But in my chest, dry fire. Rage with no place to go. I parked down the block from the rehab facility. Not a hospital, just a discreet recovery center for long-term care. No signage. Just glass and gray stone, clean, silent, like nothing bad ever happened there. At 2:55 p.m., Megan's car pulled up. My car. She stepped out wearing an outfit I didn't recognize, something stylish, deliberate, nothing like what she wore around me. Her hair was done, her lipstick matched the umbrella. The version of her I saw now wasn't one I lived with. Then the door opened. A nurse wheeled out a man. Thin, pale, early 40s. I recognized his face from a scanned ID I'd seen in her files. Dane Alcott, the man my health insurance had saved. He smiled when he saw her. She kissed him. Not passionate, not sloppy, just a quiet, practiced kiss. Familiar. That's when I stepped out of the truck and walked across the lot. I didn't shout, I didn't run. I just walked. Megan saw me first. Her eyes froze. Dane looked confused, then cautious, like a man sensing a dog off leash. I stopped 3 feet from them. The rain came down between us like a curtain. "You left the portal logged in," I said. She opened her mouth, closed it again. I looked at Dane. "You ever wonder who paid for your spine to be rebuilt?" He shifted uncomfortably, still seated, still silent. "I did," I continued. "Every hour I welded under heat that could blind a man, I was paying your way." Megan stepped in. "Cole, let's talk." "No," I said, firm. "No more talking. I just came to see it with my own eyes. I wanted to know if the story in my head was worse than the real thing." I leaned slightly toward her. "It wasn't." She blinked. "It wasn't like that." "It never is," I replied. For a second, we all stood there. Rain smearing her mascara, Dane looking anywhere but at me, Megan trying to calculate the next script. I could almost hear the wheels turning. She wasn't crying, she wasn't angry, she was cornered, and she hated being cornered. "You don't understand," she said, voice soft now. "He almost died. He had no one." I laughed. Just once, sharp. "So you married someone with benefits? You cashed in on a human policy. You were never supposed to find out." That line, flat, unfeeling, told me everything I needed. There was no apology, just the assumption I'd stay stupid. That's when I handed her the envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "Proof," I said, "of what you did, of every claim, every form, and a notice." She opened it. Her face changed. "You took your name off the house?" "Last week, after I got the documentation. You signed the refi paperwork without reading it. It's mine now." She looked like she'd been slapped. "You're throwing away everything?" "No," I said quietly. "You did. I'm just cleaning up." Theatrical moment. Quiet. Undeniable. I turned to leave, but just as I reached my truck, I heard her shout behind me. "You're gonna regret this!" I didn't turn around, but a part of me froze when I heard Dane speak. "Meg, what happens to me now?" Something about his tone. It wasn't fear of exposure. It was dependency. I glanced back. Her eyes weren't on me anymore. They were locked on him. Calculating. Resentful. That's when I realized she hadn't just used me. She was still using him. She never loved either of us. She loved what she could leverage. And then my phone buzzed. A voicemail from Ronnie. "Cole, you need to call me back. I looked deeper into those claims. Something's not right. That guy, Dane, he was listed as a spouse on one of the filings, not a dependent. A spouse." I stared at the phone. The rain didn't feel cold anymore. How do you move forward when the betrayal you uncovered was only half the story? There's a kind of silence that follows betrayal. Not peaceful, not empty, heavy, like the quiet in a steel chamber right before a blast. That's where I lived for the next 72 hours. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying it all. The kiss outside the rehab center, her flat admission that I was never supposed to know, and Ronnie's voicemail echoing on loop in my skull. He was listed as a spouse. How long had I been a placeholder? A legal smokescreen? I wasn't just betrayed. I'd been erased. The worst part? I started asking myself if I'd missed the signs because I wanted to. Because somewhere deep down, I'd grown comfortable being tolerated. That's a hard truth to swallow. But I wasn't going to sit in that silence. Not anymore. 2 mornings later, I sat back in Scott Levin's office, drenched from another storm. Same desk, same fireproof boxes, different energy. He looked over the new documents I handed him, insurance filings, overlapping marriage records, emails from Dane to Megan. The phrase domestic partnership repeated on 2 separate legal forms, both tied to healthcare filings. Scott shook his head. This isn't just fraud, Cole. If they filed marriage paperwork in another state, that could be bigamy. Depending on how it's structured, you could be entitled to not just a divorce, but damages. I didn't blink. I want her off my accounts, off everything. Already filed the paperwork to freeze the joint checking, he said. I'll have her served within 48 hours. You've also got cause to notify your employer about insurance misuse. They'll want to know before auditors find it. I nodded slowly. And the house? I asked. He smiled, just slightly. Your move to refi and change the deed last month? Smartest thing you could have done. It's yours. She has no legal claim. I signed the divorce papers on the spot. But I wasn't done. That night, I met Ronnie in the break room at the mill. She poured stale coffee into a paper cup, handed it to me without a word. "You all right?" she asked, watching my eyes. "No," I said, "but I know what to do now." She nodded. "What do you need from me?" "I need someone in payroll to flag any medical benefit claims that come through with his name. If they try to keep this going, I want a paper trail." "You got it." As I stood to leave, she touched my arm. "You didn't deserve this." "I know," I said, "but I let it happen for longer than I should have." The next morning, I dropped an envelope at Megan's front door. Inside was a single page: divorce petition, fraud documentation, and a typed note. "The policy ends in 7 days. You'll want to find your own coverage. I recommend starting with the truth." No threats, no insults, just facts. That afternoon, I called the HR director at the mill and reported the fraudulent coverage, quietly, professionally. I told them I'd take full responsibility for cleaning it up, but that I had evidence she'd filed the additions herself, without my consent. By the end of the day, I was officially clear of all liability. They opened a formal review. I was breathing again. But then, just after sunset, Ronnie texted me. "You're not going to like this. Just saw Megan's story. She's already flipping it, saying you stole her house, cut her off, and trapped her in a loveless marriage." I opened the burner phone. Sure enough, her latest post on social media was vague, stylized, black and white photo, captions about surviving control and reclaiming power. The comments flooded in with sympathy. She wasn't backing down. She was rewriting it all, out loud, in real time. And the worst part? She still had access to my name, my work history, my reputation. She didn't just want to be free of me. She wanted to be the victim. When your plan is in motion, but the other side turns the narrative against you, how far are you willing to go to set the record straight? I didn't respond to her posts. I didn't comment, clarify, or drag myself into the mud she was raking up in public. Because by then, I understood something she didn't. Reputation isn't built online. It's built in silence, in actions, in the people who've watched you show up day after day, even when no one thanked you. Let her chase sympathy from strangers. I'd already started reclaiming something real. It was 2 weeks after the fraud hearing closed that I drove out to an old steel frame barn just west of town. I'd leased it under my name, bought it cheap with the last of my savings. A place no one looked twice at, but inside I saw potential. Welding is what I knew. It's what my father knew and what his father did before him. But for the first time, I wasn't doing it to keep a company alive. I was building something of my own. A small fabrication studio, custom pieces, restoration work. Maybe even teaching a few kids from the trade school how to run a torch with intention. Honest work, no performance, no filters. Just heat, metal, and truth. The divorce finalized faster than I expected. Thanks to the fraud, she got nothing from the house. The bank honored the new deed, and my lawyer negotiated a quiet settlement. No alimony, no split assets. Her social media campaign fizzled once the truth leaked in bits. A few screenshots, a few quiet comments from people who knew me in real life. Her narrative broke apart under its own weight. I didn't gloat. I didn't post anything. I just disappeared from her story and wrote my own. One evening, as I was closing up the shop, Ronnie stopped by with 2 coffees and a contractor's clipboard. "You're officially on the preferred vendor list for the new highway project," she said. "They want local names, and yours still means something." I took the cup, grateful. Not just for the gesture, but for being seen again. Not as a victim, not as a prop, but as a man who rebuilt from ash. People think betrayal breaks you. Sometimes it does. But sometimes, if you let it, it clears the ground. I lost a marriage. I lost trust. I lost years of pretending things were fine. But I gained the freedom to live without apology, to stop being background noise in someone else's show. And that's worth more than I ever thought I'd have again. Turns out, I wasn't sterile. I was just surrounded by rot. That line stayed with me long after I said it. Because for so long, I thought something was wrong with me. Like I wasn't enough. Like I was too quiet, too steady, too blue-collar. But I know better now. There's strength in consistency. There's dignity in working with your hands. And there's justice, sometimes, in simply walking away with your name intact and your head high. She thought she could take my worth and shape it into something sellable. But worth isn't something you give away. It's something you live, every damn day. Share your own story or thoughts in the comments below. Someone out there needs to hear it.